Come grow with Stan and James DeFreitas on the Ask Mr. Greenthumb show. We hope to enlighten your senses with new ways to plant healthy greenery. You too can get the Greenthumb blessing. Come grow with Stan and James DeFreitas on the Ask Mr. Greenthumb show.
Hey, Dad, it looks like we're going to be looking at some really cool stuff today at the Black Kow facility. We're going to meet with Jody and Erin Futch, and I guess you'll tell us all about what's going to happen there as we start this episode.
Yeah, great folks, and we get to learn some of the behind the scenes, with some of the equipment they use and really how technical it is to produce that wonderful product that they make.
Right, and I guess they're going to show us like a windrow turner that helps to make sure that it turns over the manure on a fairly regular basis, and I think that'll be an interesting show for everyone to watch.
I agree. Erin, we're at Black Kow, and you've been here for how long?
Oh, about 20 years.
20 years, and you're the office manager?
Yes.
And I've been amazed just how much effort goes into making the product. I think when people see the bag of Black Kow manure or the soil, they think, well, it's just shoveled in, but there's really a process.
A long process.
Why don't we go over the process a little bit about, it's just, it takes about how many months before when it first comes in, the raw stuff, till the time it's bagged up?
Raw stuff, so it's about 10 to 12 weeks in a row.
Right.
That's composting, and then it cures for an additional 6 to 8 months, and then it's ready to get bagged.
Now I see out there they've got machines that are turning it, and I guess they call it, what, windrows?
Right, that's the windrow and the compost turner that heats it up to 131 degrees, so it kills all the weed seeds, bacteria, stuff that you don't want in there.
So for people who are wondering, like organic, gardening type thing, I think in the last 20 or 30 years, composting has really become a real process, and there's good reasoning for it. And you just mentioned some of them.
Right.
Bacteria and viruses and weed seeds, and some of those things can be the problem in the garden.
Right.
And when you're starting off with a good soil, like Black Kow's composted soil or Black Kow cow manure, you're putting good microbes in. Right.
The beneficial ones that you want in your garden.
And that's important. A lot of people don't realize too, without good bacteria in our system, we wouldn't live. We wouldn't.
Exactly.
And the same thing is true with your garden. And I think when people have such, sandy soil or rocky soil, and they go, gosh, I can't do anything with it, part of it is that they really need a good product to help make that soil.
Exactly.
And the organic material is going to help hold nutrients, it's going to hold water, and those capacities are going to be improved so much by adding Black Kow.
Right.
So that's something we want folks to remember. And I see you've got a lot of machines, and I see you've got bagging, and you have stuff that turns the stuff. I'm amazed how automated. You must have thousands of dollars in equipment.
Yes, we've become more automated since we bought it in 1985, so big difference.
I guess the equipment has changed dramatically.
Yes.
And I see you've got stuff now that you're doing, what, thousands of bags per hour?
Oh, yes.
Which is amazing to me that you've got everything going from here to there, into the bag, and then being wrapped up and getting ready to ship off in the parking lot.
Right.
So it's a real process that I think folks need to know a little bit about, so that they'll go, now I understand why I'm paying, quality price for a quality product.
Absolutely.
So, well, we really enjoyed, looking at the different areas here. I know you've got, 100 acres I think you've got in here?
100 acres, yes.
And it looks like you've got most of those 100 acres being used.
Yes.
And I see you've got areas with big tires. When I first saw the tires, I thought you had a monster truck place around here. And then I realized you're using that to help hold, sometimes too much moisture could be a problem.
Right. Yes, when we get a lot of rain, we've got to cover the piles so that the dirt actually runs smoothly through the machines.
I imagine if it gets real wet and gunky, that would be a problem.
Yes.
And problems we don't need.
Right.
Now also I noticed that you've got different areas of compost-like material. I guess some stuff you've got from the mushroom growers,
Uh-huh.
and that helps to lighten the product and also, I guess, just improve the whole process.
Right.
Do you know what the recipe kind of is on what you're going with?
I don't know it exactly.
That's
Jody
all
or
right.
Michael would have to answer that for us.
Well, we'll go over it with them on that. I think it's
Okay.
something like 80-20 or something that they were doing with the cow manure to also the lighten it up. And I see you've also got a product that's a real light product with mushrooms and stuff.
Right, the mushroom compost.
And that comes, I guess, directly from the mushroom growers.
Right, mushroom farms.
And so they need a nice, light, friable material. And I imagine after a certain period of time, they want to clean it out and start again.
Yeah, so they can only grow the mushrooms in the soil once.
Once, okay.
And then it comes back to us as a mushroom compost.
Okay. But then it still has a lot of goodness in it
Right,
as far as helping your backyard garden.
right.
You know, if people want that luscious big tomato or they want that big pepper, I always tell folks, you know, you could almost plant in pure cow manure bag or the soil and forget your native soil, because usually in the native soil there's going to be, you know, nematodes, weed seeds, fungi, bacteria, and viruses. And other than that, your backyard soil is trouble-free.
Right.
So one of the reasons I think folks really need to think about having such a dynamic product is that you start off with a good foundation and you're gonna end with one.
Right.
We're with Jody, who's the general manager here at Black Kow Compost. And what do we have behind us? What is this machine?
This is our PT-130 Airmaster compost turner.
Uh-huh.
Basically, the whole principle of this, it actually turns the pile basically inside out.
Okay.
It gets a thorough mixture of the compost row.
So when you were trying to get oxygen and air, you're really
Correct.
kind of like a chef trying to make a neat thing. It has to have a right combination.
Correct, almost like a cake.
Almost like
yeah.
a cake.
So yeah, so as it turns, it gets the air back into it, which is good for all the anaerobic bacteria and all that. If it needs water, that's what the other water wagon is, and it infuses the water straight in while we turn in.
So you can keep that thing nice and moist, and yet if it's too moist, that's a problem too, right?
Too wet, it will not compost.
So it's a combination of keeping that air going. Now these bacteria, there must be literally billions of them.
Correct, and the moisture is almost acts as a roadway.
Okay.
So the bugs actually go through the moisture veins, and if it's too dry, they can't move. If it's too wet, they flood, and then they die.
So you don't want that. And you also mentioned something I didn't think about, but if it got too cold, that could be detrimental as well.
Correct. When the temperature gets about 40 degrees or lower, we do not turn,
Okay.
because if we turn when that low, it actually opens up the pile, cools it back down, and the cold actually shocks the bacteria in it.
I'm amazed we see steam coming off some of them, so it's up to, you said like 130 is the ideal
The
temperature?
ideal composting is about 135 to 145 at the peak of the composting range, and we want to maintain that to about 15 to 20 days.
Okay.
Turn it at least 10 times within that time frame to get a good, thorough composting process.
Kind of a homogenized mix, if you will.
Correct. Yep.
We're not talking about milk, but we're talking about making that manure really friable.
Correct. Yep.
And that's an old farmer's term they used to use, friable. And,
Right.
and we're not talking about the grill here. We're talking about making that soil really loose, and yet the energy given off of that, it's almost too bad you couldn't use that energy for supplying somehow.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
I guess it's not done that way, but now when you're doing the mushroom compost, is there different temperatures, or does it take
It's the same. It's
same
the same
thing?
process.
Same process. So it doesn't matter. All these kind of go through the same process, just maybe a little different timing.
Yes. The KR rows, which are our cow rows,
Right.
Basically, when they're first laid out in our recipe, they're laid out for 6 weeks. We turn them 5 times the first week, which is every day.
Every day.
4 times the second week. Then we go 3 times, 2 times, and then the final 6 week is just 1 time that week. Then we pick it up. We put it into a bigger loader size windrow. We call it a single bucket wide windrow.
Okay.
Then it cures there for 3 to 4 weeks. Then after that, it gets picked up to a bigger pile, and basically want to let it sit for 6 to 8 months, just to let it cure and wait for the season to to come in so we can bag it.
So kind of like making a wine. I think Erin said that too, that it takes 6 to 8 months typically.
Correct.
It could take could it be here as long as a year from the raw material to the time it goes out?
Hopefully it would be here a year. That means I have plenty in stock.
Okay. And you're always getting, I see trucks going in here
Yes.
left and right, and I see tractors turning, and I see stuff moving. I was amazed some of the raw cow manure is actually lighter colored than I thought it would be.
Yes, it's that whole process that new dairies are doing. They're running it through a digester. It comes out a little bit lighter,
Right.
a little bit drier. So it's actually beneficial, but it's nothing that we used to get. So that's why it's a little bit lighter in the color and all that.
So you've seen it change a lot over the years.
Correct, yep.
And now, of course, the process is down to a science. And I saw we have your guy, put his thermometer in there and check the temperature.
Yeah, he checks the temperature of every row every day. And then how we judge it is we take the temperature before we turn it, and then he'll turn the process. He'll just put the sign back in. When we go back the next day, we touch it again just to see if it's risen, if it's lowered, so we can kind of see, do we need to turn it again? Do we not need to turn it again, depending on the moisture and all that.
Okay, so there's a real effort and a science and a system that
There's
you're
a
gonna use.
routine that we try to do.
We see signage on every pile.
Correct.
And that keeps you straight about when you've done what to it.
Correct. Kind of keeps it uniformed on what's our turning schedule, what piles we need to pick up, what piles we need to turn, the new ones that need to be laid out. Just kind of helps.
What is your number one product? Is it the cow manure? Or
It is the cow manure.
And then that would be maybe after that the soils?
I would say the
soils?
mushroom compost would be next, and then it's basically the topsoil or a peat product and all that.
Okay, so it's a combination, and I'm amazed at some of your products, it's different amounts, but a lot of the same stuff goes in different quantities.
Correct.
Depending on what you're going for.
Right.
Well, it's an interesting process, and it's an amazing process that you guys have down to such an amazing happening. And I think it's to your credit that you guys have a whole team that seems to make this thing just work like a clock.
That's what we try to do.
Great
Try
job.
to gel as a team.
Great. You did wonderful.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, Dad, but I thought it was fascinating to see all of the different components that goes into making the cow manure. The fact that they have to put a thermometer in there to check the temperature, to make sure that everything is going exactly as it should within the breakdown of the good guys and the bad guys and the bacteria inside there. And it certainly, to me, broadened my whole understanding of how that product is made.
Yeah, I was amazed when they were talking about 130 to 135 degrees, as Jody mentioned. I thought that was great information, and information that I learned a little bit more about as far as just how controlled it is. And I thought they really brought forth great information for everyone to learn.
Absolutely.